the guardian of the acacia. Introduction: the scent of sweet tobacco. If you travel deep enough into the provinces of the Philippines, away from the concrete highways, the world changes. The air grows thicker, heavy with the scent of damp earth, blooming jasmine, and ancient secrets. Out here, the locals will tell you that the land does not belong to us. We are simply guests. And when the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of purple and orange, you have to be careful which trees you walk past. Every old barrio has one particular tree, usually a massive sprawling acacia or an ancient balit with roots that twist like giant fingers. If you ask the elders, they will tell you to watch the canopy for a faint, glowing ember in the dark leaves, and to listen for the deep, low rumble of a laugh that vibrates right through the ground. They are talking about the capre. He is a guardian spirit of nature, towering over 7 feet tall, covered in thick, dark fur, sitting high in the branches, smoking a cigar that never burns down. He is sometimes mischievous, sometimes fiercely protective, and always watching. This is the story of a man named Tomas, who forgot to respect the old ways, and the night he came face to face with the giant in the dark. Part 1. The Tree at the Bend of the Road. Tomas was a practical man. He was born and raised in a small coastal town on Panay Island, but he had spent years working away from the province. When he finally returned to take over his family's small plot of land, he brought back a modern mindset. To Tomas, a tree was just wood. A forest was just timber. He didn't believe in the old superstitions that his grandmother used to whisper about. On the edge of Tomas's property, right at a sharp bend in the unpaved provincial road, stood a colossal acacia tree. It was easily 100 years old. Its branches stretched so wide they formed a complete canopy over the road, blocking out the moonlight even on the clearest nights. For generations, the locals had treated the tree with immense respect. Whenever the tricycles or jeepneys drove past it after dark, the drivers would lightly honk their horns and mutter, "Tabi tabi po," a polite phrase asking the spirits to step aside and grant them safe passage. Tomas thought it was ridiculous. "It's just an overgrown weed," Tomas told his neighbor, Mang Pedro, one afternoon, as they stood looking at the massive trunk. "The roots are going to ruin the road, and it's blocking the sunlight for my crops. I'm thinking of hiring some men to chop it down next month." Pedro's face went pale. He grabbed Tomas by the arm, his grip surprisingly tight for an old man. "Don't even joke about that, Tomas. That tree belongs to He who is dark. He has lived up there since my grandfather was a boy. If you disturb that tree, your luck will turn to ash." Tomas laughed it off. "Pedro, it's 2026. We don't need to be afraid of giants in the trees anymore." That night, Tomas would learn just how wrong he was. Part 2. Lost on a Straight Road. It started around 9 in the evening. Tomas had gone to the nearby town plaza to meet some friends and was heading back home on his old, semi-automatic motorcycle. The night was unusually dark. Heavy storm clouds blocked out the stars, and a thick, low-lying fog began to roll in from the mountains, settling over the rice fields. As Tomas rode down the familiar provincial road, the temperature suddenly plummeted. The warm, tropical night air turned ice-cold, sending a shiver right down his spine. He pulled his jacket tighter and revved the engine, eager to get back to his warm house. Up ahead, he saw the familiar silhouette of the giant acacia tree marking the bend in the road. As he approached, a strange smell hit him. It wasn't the smell of exhaust or rotting leaves. It was the rich, pungent aroma of burning tobacco. It smelled like a massive premium cigar, so strong that it made Tomas's eyes water. He drove right under the dark canopy of the acacia. The moment he passed the trunk, the headlight of his motorcycle flickered and died. "Damn it!" Tomas cursed, braking to a halt. Stranded in pitch darkness, he decided to use the flashlight on his smartphone. He pulled it out, turned on the bright LED beam, and began to coast his motorcycle forward slowly, guiding himself by the edge of the dirt road. He drove for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes. Tomas stopped. He looked around, confusion turning into a knot of anxiety in his stomach. The road from the town plaza to his house was completely straight, and the distance from the acacia tree to his front gate was barely a 2-minute ride. Yet he had been riding for 10 minutes. He kept going. 5 minutes more. The landscape didn't change. On both sides of him were the same dark, endless rice fields. The fog seemed to be moving in circles around him. Suddenly, up ahead in the beam of his flashlight, a massive shape emerged from the fog. Thomas felt his breath catch in his throat. It was the giant acacia tree. He had driven in a complete circle. But that was impossible. The road was a straight line. Part 3. The shadow in the canopy. Thomas's heart began to hammer against his ribs. He remembered what the elders said. When a capre wants to play with you, he confuses your mind. He twists the road so that no matter which way you turn, you end up right back at his feet. But Thomas was too stubborn. "It's just the fog," he muttered to himself, his voice trembling. "I just missed a turn." He turned the motorcycle around and drove, hard in the opposite direction. He pushed the engine, the small bike roaring through the night. He rode for another 10 minutes, his eyes wide, staring into the dark. And then the fog parted. There it was again, the acacia tree. This time, the motorcycle engine didn't just flicker, it sputtered and died completely. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. The normal night sounds, the crickets, the distant barking of dogs, had completely vanished, except for the smell. The sweet, heavy scent of tobacco smoke drifted down from above. Thicker than before, Thomas stood in the middle of the road, holding his phone flashlight, shaking. Slowly, against every instinct in his body, he tilted the beam of light upward, tracing the massive trunk of the tree up into the thick, tangled branches. The light hit something. 2 massive, hairy legs, easily the size of tree trunks themselves, were dangling casually from a thick branch 20 feet in the air. Thomas gasped, dropping his phone onto the dirt. The light pointed sideways on the ground, but it cast a massive, terrifying shadow against the fog. Thomas looked up with his bare eyes as they adjusted to the dark. Sitting high in the tree was a colossal, muscular figure. Its skin was the color of dark earth, covered in a coarse, reddish-brown fur. But the most striking thing was its face. It looked like an ancient, weathered man, with eyes that glowed like twin embers of wood. In its massive hand, it held a cigar the size of a human torso. Every time the creature took a breath, the tip of the cigar flared bright orange, illuminating the massive, knowing smile on its face. The capre was looking right down at him. Part 4. The Bargain. Thomas fell backwards onto the dirt road, scrambling away until his back hit the frame of his motorcycle. He couldn't speak. His breath came in ragged gasps. The capre didn't move to attack. Instead, it let out a sound. It was a deep, booming laugh that didn't come from its mouth, but seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. The leaves of the acacia rustled wildly, though there was no wind. The creature spoke. The language wasn't English or the local dialect, but a series of deep, resonant tones that somehow translated perfectly inside Thomas's mind. "You wish to cut down my home, little man?" the voice rumbled. Thomas shook his head frantically, tears welling in his eyes. All his modern logic, all his pride, washed away in a single second. "No," Thomas choked out. "No, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't believe." The capre took a long drag from its cigar, blowing a massive cloud of white smoke that cascaded down the branches like a waterfall. The smoke surrounded Thomas, warming the freezing air. Strangely, the fear in Thomas's chest began to ease just a little. The creature didn't feel evil. It felt like the mountain. It felt like the river. Powerful, indifferent, but not cruel. "This tree stood before your grandfather drew his first breath," the capre rumbled, its glowing eyes locking onto Thomas. "It will stand long after your bones have turned to dust. I guard this road. I keep the true monsters of the night away from your village. If you cut this tree, you leave your people unprotected." Thomas managed to find his voice. "I won't touch it. I swear it to you. I will tell the others. No one will ever harm this tree." The capre stared at him for what felt like an eternity. Then the giant slowly nodded. He took another puff of his cigar, and with a flick of his massive wrist, he dropped a small piece of the glowing ember. It fell through the air like a shooting star, landing right in the dirt a few feet from Thomas. "A promise made to the forest must be kept," the voice echoed, fading away. "Now go home, Thomas." Conclusion: a new horizon. Thomas blinked. Suddenly, the heavy silence broke. The loud chirping of crickets rushed back into his ears. In the distance, he could hear a dog barking. He looked up. The fog was gone. The moonlight was pouring through the clouds, illuminating the road. He looked up into the branches of the acacia tree, but there was nothing there, just leaves rustling gently in the midnight breeze. Thomas reached down and picked up his phone. The screen lit up perfectly. He pressed the starter on his motorcycle, and the engine roared to life on the very first try. The headlight cast a bright, clear beam down the road. He didn't look back. He rode straight home, walked into his house, and sat on the edge of his bed, his hands shaking until the sun came up. The next morning, Tomas walked back to the bend in the road. He found Mang Pedro already there, checking on a fence line. Tomas walked up to the old man, his face serious. "Pedro," Thomas said quietly, "about the acacia tree. We're not cutting it down. In fact, I want to build a small wooden fence around the trunk to make sure the delivery trucks don't accidentally scrape the bark." Pedro looked at Thomas, a knowing, gentle smile spreading across his wrinkled face. He sniffed the air. The faint, sweet smell of tobacco still lingered under the morning sun. "You met him, didn't you?" Pedro asked softly. Thomas didn't answer with words. He just looked up at the towering green canopy, feeling a deep sense of peace. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, smooth stone he had found in the dirt that morning, right where he had fallen, a stone that still felt strangely warm to the touch. From that day on, whenever Tomas drove past the bend in the road, he always slowed down, tapped his horn, and whispered with genuine respect, "Tabi tabi po," and high up in the green leaves, completely hidden from the rest of the world, a faint orange glow would sparkle, welcoming the guardian's friend home.